Welcome to another episode of Pwnery's Penny Arcade. This is Skul the Heroslayer, the first 30. I grew up in the late 80s to mid 90s, and if you grew up in that era, Metroid-vania type games were very in fashion. This game is quite unique in the way that it is set up, similar to Metroid or like Section Z, if you remember that. And it's just a really odd take on a lot of older style games. This is one of those games where you play through and you go as far as you can, and they time you and they check your kill counts and everything. And if you die, then you resurrect back at the beginning of the game from scratch. But the enemies that you fought will gain experience against you, so I think they become harder the more proficient with the game you get. Another cool feature is that you start off as this little guy, and you pick up abilities by changing your skull. So anyway, let's dive in and take a look. There's a lot of dialogue in the beginning, but so far it's a really good story. I've played this for about 8 hours the day before, just to get a feel for it, and 8 hours goes very quickly when you get engrossed into a game that you actually enjoy playing. So yeah, let's dive in. I've had an interesting week. Last week was my birthday, and I tell people that I became the answer to life, the universe, and everything in between. If you're a fan of Isaac Asimov, you know exactly what that means. I also had food poisoning on my birthday, and I had to deal with that for the entire week. Not the best thing. I barely made it through the work week. I'm using a Razer Sabertooth, in case you're wondering why it's giving you controller instructions. It just seems like that type of game. So anyway, this is you. You're this little guy. You do have a double jump. You have a dash. Nothing else. You are also, as far as I'm aware, the smallest skeleton in the army. So anyway, I like to play on words for the names too. Skeleton. These poor guys were decimated. Skeleton is dead. And I get to wield their leg bone. So this is beginning like a tutorial for controls here, just to give you an idea of what to do. And then we enter the land that time forgot, basically. Save the witch. So you're going to come across these cages throughout the game. The witch is the first one that you don't have to, quote, release. But you basically go up to every trap, you break it down, and then you walk up and you have to hold, in my case, the Y button to set them free. And some of them will give you assistance along the way, and some of them will meet you at the Demon King's castle. Basically, that's where your base is. So on the right there, you're going to see three little icons. One's for the collected bones, the other one is like gold, and then the other one's for dark crystals, which I'll explain along the way. One thing I really like about this game, all the graphics are very fluid and smooth, and the soundtrack's really good for the backdrop. I love that. Hollow Knight did that very well years ago, which hopefully I'll be able to get the sequel soon, and we'll do a first 30 on that as well. So he's about to give us the first head. So now I have the powers of the captain. Yeah, sword because of it. What I've discovered with these fighting types here is you want to take out the ranged guys immediately, otherwise they make your life a living hell. Also, because I have the captain's abilities, if you notice I got left trigger, right trigger, they have these abilities here. So that was like a slash and dash type thing. Alright. So this guy's relatively easy. Basically, you just slash and then go across the screen with your parry like this. It's just a matter of timing it. Of course, they don't want to make it too hard for your very first fight. And now that the dark crystal is destroyed, he gets to come back to his senses. Holy crap!
밝은 달이 떠있던 밤이었습니다.
Now this is the backstory, I guess, to explain how you came to be.
소녀는 계속해서 달렸어요.
But I'm not sure. I haven't gotten
뒤를
far enough.
검은
I've seen a
형체가
few of these
쫓았죠.
cutscenes throughout time. Playing it.
아픈 다리로 열심히 도망쳐봤지만
And I'm not fully sure
추격자는
yet.
결국
But I suspect it's going to have something to do with
소녀는
who you are.
결국 지쳐 쓰러졌고 그런 소년의 위에 그림자가 드리워졌어요. 그리고 저는 그 소년의 마지막을
This is the
지켜보려
narration
했어요.
of the witch
불쌍한 건
as she watches over this boy, which makes me think that you're him somehow. But here we are at the ruins of the Demon King's castle. So every time you die, you will respawn here. But it's like starting over every time, which I will illustrate. So the Demon King his army was destroyed and he was taken captive. And it's your job to rescue him and anyone else who was captured. You, the little skull. The smallest guy in the biggest demon army. When I read this the first time, I thought of The Simpsons. And it was Hans Springfield. It was a noble spirit embiggens even the smallest man. So you're the smallest skeleton, and you have to save the entire demon kingdom. That was kind of cool. So anyway, here's the Demon King's throne. You will spawn here every time you die. Don't think I could talk to him. And naturally, you get to jump straight down. No fall damage. You're a skeleton. Alright. So here's where the game really starts. This guy's always trying to talk you out of going on your adventure. Now, I haven't done the research on this, but you have two paths you can choose. And I thought maybe this was to gain more money, and this was to gain, you know, more story progression or whatever, but I haven't been able to tell the difference. Like, all roads lead to the same bosses eventually. So far, yeah, you just destroy all the terrain, and sometimes you pick up money. Now, the other thing you're going to notice is with the left trigger when you're just normal Skull, you get to throw your skull as a projectile. So yeah, typical hack and slash, get going. Alright, so I know it showed up kind of quickly, but those little purple orb looking things, you get a little bit of health back. Now the other thing you'll notice is there's a mini-map at the bottom, and then, you know, your bones, your coin, and your dark crystals. And then just above the map you'll see this little helmet looking thing. The game will tell you how many bosses are per room, or how many characters or enemies you have to fight through per room. So you can't leave the room until you actually clear it down to 0, and then each room gives you a reward. So in this case, we picked up a standard issue sword, which increases my physical attack by 20%. So if I tap the Y button, it'll pick it up. If I hold it down, it'll destroy it, and it'll turn it into money. But I actually want it. So now you can go to your main menu here, and this will show you that this is your normal Skull. It talks about his description of who he is and what he is, and his passive skill, and his 2 active skills with triggers. Quintessence is sort of like a spell type thing that you pick up along the way. You only get 1. And then these items here, like the ones I just picked up, these are all basically just like a combination of buffs you can get to make your character stronger. And once you figure out whatever works best for you, you can tune the items you carry. But you can't store them unless you're playing with them. If you pick up another one and you're already at 9 items, you can simply replace one with the other, and it'll drop that item in front of you and equip the new one. But the cool thing is it doesn't destroy the old one. It'll leave it floating on the screen so you can go back and forth until you decide if you want it. And then once you do decide, you want to hold down the Y key and destroy it, because you're leaving money on the table otherwise. So right now, because of the items I'm carrying, which is just a sword, my abilities on the left are dual in March. So you can stack those with like similar items, and once you max them out, you'll get these extra amplifications. So if I have 6 marching items, then this physical attack will go up by 75%. Same thing with the damage received. You can change this by the number of items you carry. And that's before we even get to the skulls you get. So, let's move on. Let's just stick to the bright ones for now. In the beginning, you're relatively weak. Which is why it takes so long to kill them. Oh yeah, you want to get rid of these guys first. Because they create an AoE, regardless of what you're fighting in front of you. Which will make life a little... Alright. That's an AoE. Alright, that should clear the room. Yep. I haven't figured out what the purpose of those skeletons that pop up is. I know that they're targets, though. You can hit them. They don't give you anything, but you can hit them. So this is a pretty unique item. I usually get this much later in the game. But it's pretty nice to have because if there's, you know, if you're surrounded by dudes, you get a lot more physical attack. So we definitely want that. I typically play fighter and tank types in most of the games I play. But I've discovered that I play really well with like an elementalist in this particular game, which you'll see soon eventually, if I can find that skull. The skulls that they give you or offer or drop are kind of random, but obviously they're not going to give you like the most powerful skulls in the game in the beginning. So like there is a, I guess it sort of monitors your progression as you go. And that way it doesn't like make you too overpowered, but it doesn't make you too disadvantaged either. This here, if you knock this out, it usually gives you a buff of some sort. So that gave me some recovered HP. Oops. He already did 26 HP. Not good. At least the room is cleared. Alright, it's payday. Alright, so the first time this cat will come and explain to you what this is. Which is pretty useful because the first time I came here I'm like, what the hell is this? So the subspace is a really useful tool. You will find these along the way, mostly before a boss fight. And it'll give you the ability to grab a couple of unique items. I'll show you as we go along. So we have 703 gold, and right here, this is like, this guy here is the collector, just like in Marvel. So he's got a lot of cool stuff here, and you've got to be very mindful of your money, because what you spend it on, you don't get to keep. If you die, it's all gone, your money and the items. But the money comes at a pretty good pace, so it's not the end of the world. So probably what I'll do is get this, because I take a lot of damage in the beginning. But if you don't like the items here, or if you buy one and it's blank space here, you can go over here and pay, and he'll change the inventory. And I've sat here one time in my other playthrough with enough money that I restocked this probably like 30 times straight, and sometimes you end up with some seriously epic equipment. But like the skulls you pick up, it's progressive, so the closer you get, or the further into the game you get, the better the items eventually will show up here. This guy here is the Demon King's cook, So if you're too beat up on energy, you can come here and you can buy yourself a heal, and it'll give you a buff for a little while too. And then this guy here is, I think his name is Headless? Yeah. So he doesn't have a skull. But if he's available on the map, like this, you can actually pick up the skull he leaves in front of him. So like for instance, I do want this one. So I'll pick that up here. And then he got my old skull. Now I didn't have to give it to him. Or no, I did have to give it to him since I didn't have a second skull yet. But in the future, I can just switch over to another skull eventually. And you can go back and forth between two different forms. I do like the werewolf in the beginning because you don't have many magic skills or elementals or anything like that yet. So you have to basically rely on speed. So generally when I have this build, I like to get either things to increase my hit points or to give me the ability to poison, which I don't have yet. But since we're kind of broke, I'm going to go ahead and just take this because I need the heals. Now we're down to 303. I can't buy anything here. This guy up here is like a... he's the artisan, quintessence artisan. So this guy builds like the magic skills. And like items, you can come here and buy it, and it'll drop the one you're currently holding, so you can switch back and forth if you change your mind. That gets costly. Usually you want to read it very carefully and say, do I need this? If I had the 500, I would totally take this because it gives you 15% more attack. But since we're broke, I can only go along with this skull with that much HP. So then you move on to the next map. So like each section has like 3 maps, sometimes 4, and then a boss. So here's our first technically boss character fight. The dude seems really in love with himself. I might not survive this. Nope. So we died. And this is to be expected in the beginning. So this is what the death screen looks like. It tells you how long you played, how many times you died so far, how many things you've killed, and how many of those dark quartz crystals you burned. And then it says the enemy gained experience from your defeat. So what I suspect is they get stronger the more times you lose to them. So you want to learn their pattern and defeat them quickly as soon as possible. So because we're dead, we have to move on to the castle. And this is what it looks like. So now you come back up, resurrected, back at the demon castle. Back to square one. If you notice, I got no bones, I got no money. But you get to keep the dark crystals, because those become very important throughout the game. So, let's talk to the witch. This whole game will revolve around the importance of dark quartz. Okay, so next time you get to talk to her, you can add traits to your characters. So even though you die, every time you come back, you get to keep the traits you built along the way. Now, I don't think I have enough of anything to do it, but this is the map here. And you basically buy traits with your dark quartz, which is why they don't take them away from you at the end of every death, because you will eventually start to fill this out. And in my other playthrough, I've completely filled it out. And then your character becomes a lot more robust. So you have Skul here, which is, I believe this deals with, yeah, like skull, like magic and skill usage. And then the bone ones, I believe, are physical attack and hit points and defense. Reassemble is one of the most important things in the game, because once you get this maxed out, if you're fighting a boss and you go down to 0 hit points, you will resurrect instantly with, I believe, 60% of your total hit points. So you get one last chance to finish him off. This is an invaluable skill later into the game, so you want to eventually get to this. And Spirit, this is critical rate. This is your cooldown for Quintessence, which is your spells. Attack speed, movement speed, and I forgot what this Ancient Alchemy does. I don't remember using this before. But since we don't have any of the crystals yet, or enough of crystals to do anything, we'll have to go on without. And so you go back out the window. And I notice you're going to see a guy that's trying to rebuild the castle. I've tried 1,000 times to talk to him. You can't, because it's free fall. Like, double jump, you can see him. But there's nothing you can do with it. And then his text just repeats. So here we are back at this, and then once again, you know, choose your path, and off you go. So if you notice, we're in a different part of the map. But these paths all go to the same boss again, so we'll run into that guy again. See, I don't think we did this map the first time. Sometimes it's wise to take the buff first, if they have one. So now my HP barrier, it's like, I basically have a wall of disposable hit points, so I can just sit there and hack and slash this guy for a while. Which is nice, and the good thing is I believe it carries over into the next room. Well, I don't have it anymore, so too bad. Clear and check. Now you notice our items are gone again, and my skull is gone too. The one we picked up. For terrible timing. You don't have to actually walk over the coins when they drop. Kind of useful. It just assumes you get to pick them up. Ooh, free skull. So, I could pick up the Corleone Recruit, which I will, and now I've got a soldier. And if I want to go back to my other form, oh, that's right. You have to pick up a second one. So if I use the right button, I could switch back to my original skull form. So now I can choose between the two. And then there's a cooldown for that, and then I can switch back to him. And we died. Which is fine, because this was the first 30 of Skul the Heroslayer. So if you like what you see, and you want to see more of this, just leave a like or a comment down at the bottom of the screen there, and I can be commissioned to play this again. Chances are, if I do the next 30, I'll go back to my original playthrough. That way you can see what a built-out character looks like, and I can take you in further than just the first boss. But anyway, I just thought I'd do this because I haven't done a Penny Arcade in a while, and I'd like to thank you for watching and subscribing. And if you're new to my channel, welcome. You might feel free to check out my other playlists and see if any of the other content that I produce is of interest to you. If not, you know, that's cool too. You can just come in for the games or the tinkering or the gunsmithing or whatever, and share it with other people you think that might like it. So anyway, this was Skul the Heroslayer's the first 30, and we'll see you next time. Later.